The grand hall of Zarkon Prime was silent. Aliens from 100 star systems sat at long black tables. Some had sharp teeth, others had glowing eyes. At the center of the hall, the alien Baron stood tall. His red skin glowed under the cold blue lights. He was known as Baron Korath, the warlord of 9 moons. His voice could shake ships. His army could crush cities. Across from him stood a single human. He wore an old uniform and a scar on his cheek. His name was Captain Ray Carter. Just one man, sent to make peace. Everyone thought he would fail. Baron Korath laughed loudly. Peace with humans? He shouted, "You come here with your little words and small ship and expect a treaty?" Ray stayed calm. He looked into the Baron's glowing red eyes. "I came to stop the war," he said. "Enough blood has been spilled." The Baron raised an eyebrow. He smiled in a cruel way. "Very well," he said. "Let us make peace. But I demand one thing." Gasps filled the room. Even the other alien leaders turned their heads. From behind the Baron, 2 guards brought forward a young girl. She was small and pale. Her eyes were silver and full of fear. She looked down at the floor and did not speak. She wore no jewels, no armor, no pride. "This is my daughter," the Baron said, his voice full of mockery. "She is mute, broken, useless. A curse to my name. I give her to you." Human, as a gift of peace. The room exploded with laughter. The alien lords banged their cups. They thought it was a joke, a final insult to the weak human. Ray looked at the girl. She stood still like a statue. She did not cry. She did not move. But her fingers trembled, just a little. "She is not a gift," Ray said quietly. "But I will take her." The laughter stopped. Baron Korath frowned. "You accept her?" he asked. "Yes," Ray said. "Not because you offer her, but because no one deserves to be treated like this." The Baron narrowed his eyes. "She will never speak," he said. "She will never obey. She is a shadow, a waste. Then I will give her light," Ray said. "And maybe she will grow." The Baron waved his hand. "It is done," he said. "Take your new prize, human." Ray stepped forward and gently held the girl's hand. She did not pull away, but she did not look at him. Together, they walked out of the hall, past the alien lords, past the guards, and into the unknown. On the human ship, Ray gave her a quiet room. He brought her warm food. He spoke to her kindly every day, but she never spoke. She watched everything, though. Her eyes moved quickly. She studied the controls. She learned the layout of the ship in hours. Ray began to notice when tools went missing. They returned cleaner. When the engine made a noise, it stopped without a mechanic. He knew she was behind it. One day, he found her sitting near the control panel. She had opened the system and was looking inside. Her fingers moved with skill. Ray didn't stop her. He just watched. "You understand this ship?" he asked. She didn't speak, but her eyes looked up at him. For a moment, they weren't afraid. They were curious. Ray smiled. "You're not broken," he said. "You're just waiting." She blinked slowly, then turned back to the wires. Ray knew then. The Baron had lied. The girl was not a shadow. She was a storm waiting to rise. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her secrets, but he made a silent promise. "I'll protect you," he whispered. "Whatever you are, whoever you are, I will never treat you like trash." Behind her silence, something stirred. Not fear, not pain, but power. And far away, in his throne of stone, the Baron laughed to himself. "The fool took the girl," he muttered. "He doesn't know what he's holding." But deep inside the Baron's voice, there was a tiny crack. Was it fear? Asterisk. The girl didn't speak, not even once since they left Zarkon Prime. But something was changing. Each day aboard the ship, she moved a little more. She watched the stars through the window. She traced the control panels with her fingers. She walked quietly when Ray was asleep. Captain Ray Carter didn't stop her. He let her explore. He left the engine room open. He unlocked the doors. He wanted her to feel safe, and slowly her eyes changed. The fear faded. Curiosity took its place. One morning, Ray woke to the soft sound of humming. It was coming from the engine room, not the usual buzz of machines, but a soft, human-like humming. He walked down the corridor and found her sitting on the floor with a small tool in her hand. Cables lay open in front of her, but she hadn't broken anything, in fact. The power was running smoother than ever. "You fixed the power core," he said quietly. She looked at him. No smile, no words, just a calm stare. Ray knelt down. "You understand this ship better than my own engineers," he said. Her head tilted slightly, as if asking why that surprised him. Ray chuckled. "You're full of surprises." She looked away and returned to her work. That day, Ray checked the ship's logs. He found systems that had never worked, now running perfectly. Doors that used to stick now sliding open like new. Even the ship's AI had a smoother voice pattern, but no logs showed who fixed them. No alerts, no repair notices. It was like the ship had healed itself, only it hadn't. She was doing it. Without training, without help, without saying a single word. Ray started calling her Nova when he talked to her. She didn't respond. But she didn't reject it either. And something about the name seemed right. Bright and quiet, like a star waiting to explode. One night, an alert blared through. The ship, a small pirate drone, had locked onto them. Ray rushed to the bridge and grabbed the controls. He fired the engines, but they didn't respond. The drone fired a warning shot, cutting power to the lights. Ray cursed and opened the backup systems. He had no time to think. The drone would fire again in seconds. But then, something strange happened. The control panel lit up on its own. Commands typed themselves. Engines roared to life, and the ship jumped sideways out of the drone's aim. Ray stared at the screen. He hadn't touched it. A soft beep drew his attention to the corner. Nova stood there, her hand on the wall panel. Her eyes glowed faintly under the emergency lights. Ray could barely speak. "That was you," he whispered. She looked at him, then at the screen, then back at him, and nodded. It was the first time she responded. No sound, but a clear answer. Ray felt a chill, not from fear, but from wonder. This girl wasn't just smart. She was connected. Somehow she knew the ship, like it was a part of her. After that, Ray began to test it. He asked Nova questions. "Can you find a weak spot in this system?" She pointed. "Can you access the nav core?" She tapped twice on the screen. She never used her voice, but her silence was louder than most people's words. Ray knew something else now. Nova wasn't just the Baron's daughter. She was something more. He remembered how easily the Baron gave her away. How sure he was that she was useless. But now Ray saw the truth. The Baron hadn't given her away because she was weak. He gave her away because she was dangerous, and maybe, just maybe, he was afraid of what she could become. Late that night, Ray looked at her one more time through the hallway camera. She was sitting by the engine, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, and on the ship's screen beside her, strange symbols began to appear, not from Earth, not from Zarkon, not from any known language. She didn't speak with her mouth. She spoke through the ship, and the ship listened. Far away, in the deepest corners of space, someone else was listening too. Someone who knew those symbols, and they were not pleased. The silence was ending, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Ray Carter had seen war. He had seen death, betrayal, and silence. But never had silence felt this heavy, this alive. Nova sat near the control screen, eyes fixed on symbols that should not exist. They danced across the screen like they were alive. She wasn't just using the ship. She was talking to it. Ray had stayed up the whole night, staring at the logs, commands entered with no keyboard. Energy spikes in places no one touched. Messages in an unknown language appearing, then disappearing like ghosts. He tried translating the symbols, but the database gave nothing. Not alien, not human, not machine, just unknown. Nova walked the côte halls like she belonged there. Doors opened without her touch. The AI stopped speaking whenever she entered. It was like the ship knew she was in control. Ray started to feel something strange. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was awe. She didn't eat much, she didn't sleep often. But whenever Ray sat down, tired or lost, she was there, just standing quietly, as if guarding him, like she knew he was the only one who had chosen her without laughing. Then it happened. Ray was fixing the outer antenna, in a suit on the ship's surface. The tools stopped working. A pulse of strange static hit the ship. The screen on his wrist went black. He floated helplessly, trying to restart the system. Then, he heard something, not through the radio, but directly in his mind. A whisper, soft and strange. Hold still. The tools moved by themselves. His suit systems blinked back to life. He turned and saw Nova standing behind the inner shield, eyes glowing brighter than ever. Ray floated back inside, shaking. He pulled off his helmet and stared at her. "You spoke," he whispered. She looked at him without emotion. Then finally, a voice barely more than breath. Yes, one word, small, soft, but it shook Ray harder than a bomb ever had. Nova blinked, confused by her own sound. She touched her throat like it surprised her. Ray walked closer, careful, slow. "You've never spoken before," she nodded. "Why now?" She looked at the ceiling, at the ship, then back at him. "You listened," she said. Ray felt something tighten in his chest. In all the years of war, no alien ever said that, not with meaning, not with truth, but she had, and now he knew he was no longer just carrying a passenger. He was standing beside something rare, something that didn't exist in the known worlds, something new later while running a scan. Ray noticed something strange. Nova's heartbeat wasn't normal. Her DNA pattern shifted slightly every time she was near the ship's core. She was not just controlling it, she was linked to it, like a part of her was made from the same code. That night, as the ship floated near a quiet moon, Nova came to Ray's cabin. She walked in silently, her silver eyes glowing in the dark. "They're coming," she said. Ray stood up fast. "Who?" She pointed at the stars. "Hunters." Ray ran to the bridge and scanned the sky. Nothing on the radar, just silence and stars. But she stood still, certain. Then the message arrived, a single pulse transmission, encrypted in the same strange symbols. Ray played it, and a voice filled the ship. "This is Baron Korath." It said, "I want what is mine. You cannot hide her, human. She is not a child. She is a key." Ray looked at Nova, her hands clenched into fists. She wasn't afraid, she was angry, for the first time. Ray saw something break through her calm, a storm, buried deep inside her, rising. He reached out slowly. "What are you?" he asked. She turned to him, eyes bright like stars. "I don't know yet," she whispered, "but I will find out." And behind them, in the black sky, something moved, a shadow without a shape. The hunters had arrived, but this time, the girl wouldn't be silent. The Baron sat alone in his throne room, staring at the stars through the glass wall. His empire stretched across galaxies, his fleets unmatched in size, but none of that mattered now. Because of her, he had thought she was a mistake, a child born of Forbidden's code and blood. She never spoke, never followed orders, so he gave her away, thinking it would end there, a joke, a way to shame the humans. But now she had spoken, and the galaxy had felt it. Reports poured in, whispers of a mute girl who controlled machines. A girl who turned a simple scout ship into a ghost. A girl whose eyes glowed with something no scanner could explain. Nova. He hated that name. She was not Nova to him. She was a locked box, a sealed experiment, and now that box was open, he clenched his fist as the last message came in, a bounty hunter's final words, broken by static. "She looked at me," the voice whispered, "and the ship stopped listening to me." Then silence, back on Ray's ship. Things were no better. Nova stood at the window, silent again, but it wasn't the same silence. This was the silence before a storm. Ray had watched her for days now. Her voice had returned, but she barely used it. Instead, she spent hours inside the system core. She had opened parts of the ship Ray didn't even know existed. Hidden ports, old codes, lost files. One day, Ray found her holding a small cube in her hand. It pulsed with soft blue light. "What is that?" he asked. Nova stared at it like it held her memories. "My beginning," she said. Ray sat down slowly. "Was the Baron your father?" She didn't answer at first, then nodded barely. "He made me," she said. "Not like others." Ray didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing. She was not fully human, not fully alien. Something had been added, something powerful. And old. She wasn't a mistake, she was designed. Suddenly, the ship lights flickered. A red alert flashed on the screen. "Unmarked vessel approaching," the AI said. Nova looked up. "They found us." Ray ran to the controls. "Can we jump?" Nova touched the console. Too late. Outside, a sleek black ship appeared from the dark. No flags, no ID, just shadow and speed. They fired first. A blast hit the ship's side, cutting deep. Alarms rang out. Ray tried to fire back, but the weapons didn't respond. Nova stepped forward and placed her hand on the panel. A wave of blue energy spread across the ship. Systems rebooted. Shields came up. Then she spoke, not loud, not angry, but clear. "Stop." The enemy ship froze in. Space, engines still burning, but not moving, like time itself paused. Ray stared at the screen in disbelief. "How did you do that?" Nova turned to him. "They listened to me," she said. "They always have." The enemy ship started to retreat, moving slowly like a beast unsure of its next step. Then it vanished, jumped into deep space without firing again. Ray slumped into the pilot's chair, breathing hard. "You're not just powerful," he said. "You're something they fear." Nova walked to him, sat beside him, and for the first time asked a question. "Do you fear me?" Ray looked into her eyes. He saw strength, yes, and danger, but also pain, loneliness, and a deep hunger to be more than a weapon. "No," he said. "I trust you." Nova nodded slowly, like she was testing those words in her heart. Far away, Baron Korath stood before his war council. He slammed his fist on the table. "She has awakened." He growled. "We end this now." He ordered his fleet to prepare. Not for battle, but for capture. He didn't want her destroyed. He wanted her back. Because she was not just a key. She was the lock too. And if someone else found out how to open her completely, even the Baron's power would be nothing in deep space. Nova closed her eyes as the stars passed. She felt the Baron's anger. She felt the ships moving. And deep inside her mind, an ancient voice whispered, "You are not his." She opened her eyes, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. The stars were quiet, but Nova was not. Inside her mind, something had opened. She began to see things not with her eyes, but with her thoughts, old signals, hidden patterns, fragments of languages no one used anymore. They floated in her dreams. Soft and strange, like memories that never belonged to her. Ray noticed the change. Nova no longer moved like a scared girl. She walked with purpose, like she remembered who she was. She still didn't speak much, but every word she chose mattered, precise, sharp, like a blade hidden in silk. One evening, she walked into the ship's lab and stared at the old data core they had never touched. Ray stood nearby, arms crossed, watching her. "You think there's something in there?" he asked. Nova nodded. "I feel it calling," she whispered. Ray helped her set it up. But as soon as the system activated, strange energy pulsed through the room. The lights flickered blue, the floor vibrated, and the ship's eyes stuttered, like it was afraid. Then a voice spoke, not from the speakers, not from the machine, but from inside Nova's mind. "You have returned." Nova gasped and fell to her knees. Ray rushed forward, but she raised her hand. "Don't touch me," she said softly. "Not yet." Images rushed through her thoughts, cities made of glass and light, machines flying without fuel, beings with no faces but voices like thunder. And in the middle of it all, her, but not as a girl, not as someone hiding. She stood tall, glowing, and all machines bowed to her. Ray helped her up as her breathing slowed. "What did you see?" he asked. She looked at him with tears in her eyes, not from sadness but confusion. I think I was made by something older than the Baron. She said, something powerful. Ray stared at her. You're saying he didn't create you? She shook her head slowly. He only found me. He put pieces inside me. But the core, the real part, it was already there. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ray asked the question they both feared. Then what? Are you? Nova closed her eyes. She wanted to say, I don't know. But the truth was deeper than that. She was starting to understand it, piece by piece. Like a puzzle falling into place. She remembered codes before she learned them. She could speak to systems without touching them. And now, she knew why the Baron had given her away so easily. He didn't want her dead. He wanted her hidden. Because if others found her, they would ask the same question. And the answer could destroy him. Just as Nova turned to speak, an alarm rang through the ship. Ray ran to the console and pulled up the screen. A new signal, small, but close, not a warship, not a hunter. It was a pod, floating silently near a dead satellite. Nova placed her hand on the control panel. A soft sound filled the ship, and the pod's hatch opened from a distance. Inside was a creature, barely alive. It was alien, covered in silver markings that glowed faintly. Ray moved to stop her, but Nova had already opened the docking bay. The creature floated in, breathing weakly. Its eyes opened slowly, and when it saw Nova, it smiled. Inheritor. It said, You live. Ray stood frozen. Nova knelt beside the creature. Who are you? She asked. I was the last keeper, it whispered, of the Voiceborn. Nova's breath caught. What is that? The creature touched her forehead with a trembling hand. You are the voice, it said. You command, and the world obeys. You were meant to wake when war began. You were meant to lead. Ray stepped forward, shocked. Are you saying she was designed to fight? The creature turned its fading eyes to Ray. No, it said. She was designed to end the fight. Then the light in its body faded, and it died with a smile on its face. Nova stood slowly, the words echoing in her heart. She was not just an accident, not a forgotten child. She was a final answer. And now, the galaxy was waking. Far away, Baron Korath stood before a deep vault hidden beneath his palace. Inside was a second cube, glowing like the one Nova had touched. He looked at it with fear in his eyes. If she unlocks it all, he whispered, I won't be able to stop her. He turned to his generals. Send the message, he said. Tell every system. The girl must be captured alive. But even he didn't know. Nova had already begun unlocking the voice inside her, and it was no longer quiet. The ship had grown quiet again. But this silence felt different. It was the kind of silence before something great begins. Nova no longer avoided her power. She embraced it, not with pride, but with purpose. Ray watched as she spent hours connected to the main system. Her hands didn't just touch screens now. They glowed with thin lines of light. The ship responded faster, smarter. Doors opened a second before she reached them. Engines adjusted based on her thoughts. She no longer needed to speak. Her presence was enough. Ray called it the voice of steel. It wasn't loud, but it moved machines like commands shouted through space. Ray had seen strange tech before, but nothing like this. Nova was becoming something new. Not human, not machine, not alien, but something in between. He tried to understand it, to protect her. But deep inside, he knew soon, he might not be able to keep up. One day, Nova walked to the back of the ship and stopped in front of a sealed door. The room hadn't been opened in years. A storage bay filled with old systems and failed tech. She stared at the lock and raised her hand. The door hissed, groaned, then opened without a sound. Ray followed her inside. The room felt colder, like it remembered something it wasn't supposed to. Nova walked straight to a strange device tucked under metal sheets. It was round, dusty, covered in strange patterns. She knelt beside it, placed her palm on top, and the device came to life. Lights flickered, and a soft hum filled the room. Then a voice spoke, not hers, not Ray's, but the same ancient tone as the dying alien who had called her inheritor. "You have access to Memory Vault," it said. "Voiceborn protocol unlocked." Ray stepped back. Nova didn't move. She stared at the lights like they were parts of her own past. The vault showed images, not just pictures, but full memories. A city in the sky, machines that moved like wind, children with glowing eyes being trained to speak commands that shaped matter. And in the center of them, a girl, quiet, watching, learning. Nova. Ray felt a chill. "These aren't visions," he said. "They're history." Nova nodded. "Before the empires." She whispered. "Before the barons. There were the voiceborn." Ray stared at her. "You're one of them." "I'm the last one," she said. The vault went dark again, but the truth stayed bright. Nova had been hidden, reprogrammed, silenced for years, not because she was broken, but because she was the last of something ancient, something powerful, something forbidden. Ray sat down, rubbing his face. He had accepted a mute girl as a joke. Now he stood beside the last voiceborn, a being who could speak to machines and command matter itself. "What happens now?" he asked. Nova turned to him. "I need to go to the source," she said. "There's a place where I was built, or found, or both. I see it in my mind." Ray nodded slowly. "Then we go." But before they could move, the ship shook violently. An impact, followed by red lights and emergency alarms. Ray rushed to the bridge. A Baron-class warship had entered orbit. It wasn't alone. 3 ships, all marked with the same symbol, Korath's seal. Nova joined him, calm and focused. "They came faster than I expected," she said. Ray activated defense mode. "They're here for you." "I know," she said, "but I'm not running." She walked to the communication console and placed both hands on it. The screen lit up, and a video opened. Baron Korath appeared, staring straight at her. His voice was low, sharp. "You've opened the vault." Nova didn't answer. "You don't know what you carry," he said. "You were not meant to awaken." "I was meant to end your kind," she said. Her voice echoed through the ship, deeper than before. Ray looked at her and saw something different. Her eyes were brighter, her skin almost pulsing with light. "You don't know the danger you've awakened," the Baron growled. "You are not a savior. You are a weapon." "No," she said. "I am the warning you ignored." Then she cut the signal. Ray activated shields, but Nova touched his arm. "Don't fight yet," she said. "I will speak." She walked to the center of the ship, into the command ring. Her hands stretched out as energy flowed through the walls. She began to whisper words no human could understand. But the ship responded like it had waited centuries for this voice. Outside, the 3 warships powered down one by one, engines cold, weapons disabled. Nova opened her eyes, breathing hard. Ray stood frozen. "You shut them down," she nodded. "For now." Far away in the Baron's war room, screens went black. He turned away from his generals and whispered to himself. "She's not just the key, she's the door." The stars stood still, or so it seemed. 3 warships drifted without power, silenced by one voice. Nova sat in the center of the ship, eyes closed, breath steady. The systems around her glowed blue, like they were breathing with her. Ray watched. From the edge of the control room, he didn't speak. This moment wasn't his, it belonged to her. For the first time since she was given away, Nova looked calm, not quiet, not broken calm. Her silence wasn't fear anymore, it was control. The ship began to shift, panels moved. Old systems unlocked themselves, something deep within the structure hummed awake. Ray checked the data and froze. Coordinates, ancient ones, were being plotted automatically. He looked at Nova. "You're taking us to the source." She nodded. "I need to remember all of it." The jump drive activated without his command. The ship vanished from known space and reappeared above a planet wrapped in clouds of silver. It didn't exist on any map, it had no name, but Nova knew it. "This is where I was made," she said. The ship landed gently on a glowing platform. Ray followed Nova as she walked into a forgotten city. The structures were smooth and tall, without a single light. But as she passed, they lit up one by one, doors opened to her, walls displayed symbols. Old voices whispered through the air. "Welcome back," they said. Ray felt like he had stepped into a dream. Everything obeyed her presence, like the city was waiting, holding its breath for her return. They reached a great hall, empty but endless. At the center stood a massive pillar of light. Nova stepped into it, and images filled the air. She saw herself as a child, not in flesh but in code. Built from ancient designs, not by the Baron, but by the Voiceborn. Created for peace, hidden during war, stolen by those who feared what peace could do. Ray watched her face as she learned the truth. She had never been a mistake. She had been a message. A living memory of a forgotten time. The pillar dimmed. Nova stepped out, her voice steady. "It's time." "Time for what?" Ray asked. "To choose," she said. "I can restart what the Voiceborn began. I can bring order between machine and life. But the cost." She looked at the stars above. "If I speak fully, I won't be the same. I'll become the voice itself." Ray stepped closer. "Then don't," he said. "You're more than a voice. You're Nova." She smiled gently. "I'm both." A signal came through the ship. Baron Korath's fleet had found them. This time, they had brought everything. Hundreds of ships, engines burning red. Ray looked at the sky. "We can't fight that." Nova turned to him. "I won't." She walked back into the ship, stood at the center, and closed her eyes. The lights dimmed, then flared bright. She began to speak not with words, but with power. One by one, enemy ships stopped moving. Engines powered down, weapons shut off, then their screens filled with Nova's face. Calm and glowing, she didn't threaten, she didn't rage, she spoke. And the galaxy listened. "I was given away like a joke," she said. "But I am not a joke. I was made to remind you all that power is not control, that silence is not weakness, that peace is not surrender." She opened her hands, and every ship around the planet shifted course, not to attack, but to leave. Her voice had reached their systems, their AI, even their cores, and they obeyed. Far away, Baron Korath watched from his throne. His screen went black. His war was over, not by battle, but by voice. Nova turned to Ray, her eyes soft now. "It's done." Ray looked at her, unsure what to say. "Will you still stay with me?" She walked closer and took his hand. "I chose you before I knew who I was," she said, "and I choose you now." Together, they watched the stars, no longer afraid, no longer running. Nova had spoken, and the galaxy would never forget it.